Hello guys, welcome back in our Laravel API course, and in this module we are going to see how to work with feature test. So this module and the next module you are going to work on test, but we start with feature test and then we'll go into unit tests. So feature tests are basically tests that are used to test the features of your system. I don't know if that makes sense. And features are basically, the functionality that deals with the users. For example, the authentication, it can be a feature. The authentication can be a feature. Login, logout, register. That whole module can be a feature that the user uses. Maybe managing product can also be a feature. In other words, features are basically collection of units test. So small units make up a feature. For example, deleting user, adding user, editing user, that can make up a feature of managing user. So without further ado, let us dive in and see how to do this. So I'm going to start with a feature test for authenticating user. And these tests are important because when you send your data or when you have deployed your data, you can automate these tests so that they run, for example, during a pull request, a merge, anything of that sort. So that maybe when your colleague or you have pushed a code and it has a bug, this bug can be caught during the merge or during the pull request. So they are quite important to understand how to build this test. So I'm going to build a feature test for authentication, and that I'll bring up my CMD here. So I'm going to say PHP artisan, and I'm going to make test. This by default it will make a feature test. So make test, I'll say auth, let's call test, or let's say authentication. That sounds better. Authentication test. So while that creates, when you go inside the test here, we have the feature test here, and then we also have the unit test. So for now, I'm going to delete this unit test. We don't need any test for now. Just start from scratch. I'm going to delete this. So now we have our authentication test here. So inside this, we have this test example. Of course, it doesn't mean anything. So let me just empty this code here. And I'm going to rename my test to be test user. We'll start with the registration. Registration, test user registration. I'm going to delete this. So if you name your code like this, the test will appear as user registration, which I think is a good name for now. So if you think of it, currently in our, let me just go quickly to our API here, inside the HTTP controllers, inside the auth controller. So if you think of it, what we are doing here, we are basically, of course, validating. We don't need to test the validation here. We can do that later, but for now, we just want to test the registration process. So we are getting a user, and this user needs to have the name, the email, and the password. And once he has been registered successfully, we are returning a response with a message and token and 201 response code. So the way you can test that is that we can say, for example, now let's just create a response here by default and say I'm going to say post JSON like this, and inside here, this will take a URL or a route of where you're going to send your data. So this will be API slash register. Then the second parameter needs to be an array of the data that you're going to send. So for now, I'm going to say that I'm going to send a name, and the name, let's say it will be test username like this, and then we need an email, of course, and a password and a confirmed password. So this will be an email, this will be test email.com, this will be password, this will be test1234, that is okay. And then I'll just duplicate this password instead and just do this and say this should be confirm underscore password. For that, we can say that on the response, number one, we want to assert that the status assert status. Why is it doing this? Assert status, I want it to be 201. That is the status code that we are using. And then I also want to, so I'll say assert JSON structure like this. And this takes can take an array here. And the structure, I want that structure to have a message. I want, to look through the JSON that is returned and to make sure it has a message, and also it has, I believe, a token. Let me just confirm here on the auth. Yeah, the message and the token, and that is okay for now. So the next thing that we can do is that we can just check if this database has this data. So we can use, I believe it is database has, assert database has, yeah. So this will check whether that data exists. So we'll check on the users table, and the next data is an array. So what we can do is that we can just copy our array here, and I'll paste it here, and then I'll remove confirm password, I'll remove password. The reason why I'm removing password and confirm password is because on the database, this data is stored as a hashed password, and you don't want, to check, because here you'll be passing, you are checking for password, you're not checking for hashed password. I don't know if that makes sense. So once we have done this, I think it is okay. So we are registering a user, we are checking if the response is 200, and we are starting if there is a message and a token, value, variables, and then we are also checking in the database to see that this user exists. This should be test email. So this is okay. So let us try and run our test and see. So to run our test, I just say php artisan test. All right, this is the error I'm getting, and that is because I seem to have deleted a file here from test. Let me just undo this. Testcase.php. I think I deleted the wrong file there. Okay, let me just run this again. Test like this. All right, so we have our test running, and as you can see here, our test has passed, which is okay. So now if I go to authentication controller, let us just try to break something here. So assuming my friend comes and does something like this, maybe comments out that code mistakenly. So when this code is pushed, and then the test maybe run automatically. So this is what I'll get. And then the test will fail. As you can see, the test has failed, and that is because it is validating the user register method. So I'll have to go here and check, oh, I forgot this. So I'll check this again, then go back and, I check the test again. Now the test will pass, and now the test runs okay. So that is how you write the test for the register functionality.